Hey everybody. Hi everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Philip and we're diving deep into one of the favorites everybody loves for the springtime and summer, compost. Now, making compost is equal parts art and science. It's a beautiful, messy, wonderful process of transformation, turning what most people consider waste management into nutrient-rich black gold for your garden. It's a build project, a collaboration with millions of tiny organisms to create something truly valuable, and I absolutely love it. A lot of guides will find out really get into the fixated part on the science, specifically the carbon to nutrient nitrogen ratio. And look, it's important, but the engine of the whole process is not just focusing on that, but it's like trying to build a complex machine with only two types of screws. The real magic, the secret to creating a truly exceptional nutrient dense compost that will make your plants sing is variety. The more diverse the ingredients you add to your pile, the richer and more complex the final product will be. It's all about creating a full balanced diet for your soil. So today we're going to go beyond the usual kitchen scraps and grass clippings. I always mess up on that part. We're going to go on a myth busting mission. So I'm going to share with you 39 surprising and sometimes controversial items you can add to your home compost pile. We're going to explore why and how for each one so you feel confident and get creative with your own compost build. This is where the art comes in, and I promise by the end, you'll look at your waste in a whole new light. Now, let's get started. So, we're going to go with the absolute classic, the cornerstone of any good compost pile, your everyday fruits and vegetable waste. We're talking banana peels, apple cores, tops of carrots, potato peelings, tough stems from your kale, you name it. All those bits and pieces you normally scrape into the trash bin are pure gold for your compost. These are your primary greens, your nitrogen source. They're packed with moisture and essential nutrients that kickstart the decomposition process. Every time you toss these scraps into your pile, you're not just reducing the amount of waste headed to a landfill, which is a huge win in itself. You're actively building the foundation of your future garden's health. Think of it as that preloading your soil with vitamins and minerals that your next crop of plants will need to thrive. And it's the first and most important step in closing that loop, turning your kitchen's output directly into your garden's input. It's a beautiful, efficient system. Now, let's talk about the stuff that sat in the back of the fridge a little long, too long. You know what I mean? The mushy tomatoes, slightly fuzzy strawberries, and a head of lettuce has seen better days. It's easy to feel a little guilty about food waste, but here's the good news. Your compost pile doesn't judge, neither do I. And the fact is that the forgotten fruits and vegetables with open arms, your compost will welcome them. You know, the microbes, the overly ripe and slightly spoiled produce is already on its way to decomposition, which is actually gives your pile a little boost. The sugars are breaking down, the cells are weakening its prime material for the bacteria and fungi to do all the heavy lifting in your compost. So instead of a sad trip to the garbage can, give that expired produce a second life. Let it fulfill its destiny by becoming part of the rich, dark humus that will nourish future foods. It's a redemption for your vegetables. Think about it. This is where things start to get a little controversial for some people. And can you compost leftovers? The stuff from your plate, the last bit of casserole, the rice your kid didn't eat, even scraps with a little meat and sauce on them? The answer is resoundingly yes, with a critical caveat. The key here is proper management to avoid attracting unwanted visitors like raccoons or rats and to prevent unpleasant odors from taking over your backyard. When you add these kind of cooked foods, especially anything containing meat, dairies, oil, or fats, you can't just toss them in on the top. You need to bury them deep within the center of your pile. This is where the pile is the hottest, which accelerates decomposition, and the surrounding material acts as a natural biofilter, trapping in any potential smells. Covering it will also make it harder for the pests to find, so don't be afraid to compost those leftovers. Just be strategic about it. Here's an ingredient I never let go to waste: eggshells. After you crack your eggs for breakfast, don't just toss those shells in the trash. They're a powerhouse of calcium carbonate, a mineral that is incredibly beneficial to your soil's health. Calcium helps build strong cell walls and plants, preventing them common problems like blossom and rot in tomatoes and peppers. It's like giving your plants a strong skeleton. And now you can't just throw them in a hole. There's a pro tip to make them more effective. Give them a quick rinse and remove any egg residue. Let them dry out, then crush them up. You can use a mortar or a pestle or a back of a spoon, or just put them in a bag and step on them. Watch your toes. Crushing them dramatically increases the surface area, allowing them to break down much faster. and release that valuable calcium into your compost more readily. It's a tiny extra step that pays big dividends in your garden. Okay, now we're going to level up a little bit and talk about cooked bones. This is another one that makes a lot of people pause, think about it, or hit my comment section. What's bone meal? It's just ground up bones. It's a fantastic organic fertilizer rich in phosphorus and calcium. Phosphorus is crucial for root development, flowering, and fruiting. So why not make your own? The bones left over from the roasted chicken, rack of ribs can absolutely go into your compost pile. The secret here is that heat and time. A hot compost pile is actively managing to reach its temperatures of 130 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit, which will do a remarkable job of breaking down small bones. Over time, they will become soft and brittle. When you sift your finished compost, you can pull away any remaining fragments or either toss them back into a new pile for another round. Or if they're soft enough, crush them up, mix them right into your garden soil. It's the ultimate nose to tail, and in this case, bone to soil approach. All right, let's tackle a big one, meat. For decades, the controversialism has been hard on meat composting scraps. The fear is that rot, terrible smell, attracting pests from 5-mile radius. And look, if you toss a raw steak on the top of your pile, that's exactly what will happen. Now, that's not how we do things here because we do it the right way. And you can safely and effectively compost meat. The technique is the same with the oily leftovers, but even more critical. You got to chop that meat up into smaller pieces to increase the surface area. Then you got to bury it deep in the core of a hot, active compost. Remember that pile. Take in at least a foot of materials on all sides. The intense heat in the center of a compost pile will kill pathogens and break down proteins and fats quickly, while a thick layer surrounding compost acts as a biofilter to contain odors. This is an advanced technique, best for a well-managed hot composting system, not a casual cold pile. Spilled milk, a bit of moldy cheese, that yogurt you forgot about in the back of the fridge. Much like meat, dairy products have a bad reputation in the composting world. The primary concerns are, again, odors and pests. But just like with meat, the problem isn't the material itself, it's actually the method you're composting in. These items are rich in nitrogen, proteins, and fats, which can be valuable additions if handled correctly. The solution is burial. It's not just pour sour milk over the top of your pile. Instead, you got to dig a hole in the center, pour it in, and cover it up immediately and thoroughly with rich carbon browns like shredded leaves and cardboard. A solid dairy like cheese, chop it up, bury it inside a hot core. This containment strategy minimizes the smell, keeps it away from pests, and allows microbes in your pile to get the work done and break it down safely. These are the keys. Now, we got to move back to something a little less controversial, but incredibly beneficial. The remnants of your morning ritual. Use tea leaves, coffee grounds, and even their compostable paper filters or bags are fantastic additions to your pile. Coffee grounds are a brilliant source of nitrogen despite their acidity when fresh. They tend to neutralize as they decompose, so you don't have to worry about them throwing off your soil. Your soil pH. Tea leaves offer simple and boost. Don't forget packaging. Many tea bags are made with paper or natural fibers that break down beautifully. But just be sure to remove any staples first. Paper coffee filters are a great source of carbon, helping to balance the nitrogen from the soil or from the ground. Adding these materials is an effortless way to divert waste from landfill to feeding your compost a steady diet of goodies. A win-win if you ask me. And what about the end pieces of loafy bread nobody wants? A baguette that's gone as hard as a rock. Don't throw it out. Stale bread, crackers, pasta, and other grain base are excellent additions to your compost pile. They break down relatively quickly and provide a good source of carbon and other micronutrients that add to the overall diversity, richness of your finished compost. My only advice is to break up and tear them larger pieces into small ones when you toss them in. You increase the surface area and helps them integrate into a pile more quickly rather than just sitting in a big dry brick. You have the large amount, it's best to mix it in with some greens, moist material to ensure it just doesn't get a dry, doughy lump. Think of it as adding other ingredients to your compost recipe, contributing a more complex and balanced final product. Bet you didn't know that. Now let's head to the pantry. So that box of oats that's been open for like a year, you promise you do, the bag of flour that's past its due date, the old rice or quinoa you're never going to cook, just toss them in the trash. Nope, don't do that. We're going right into the compost pile. Uncooked expired grains are actually a fantastic source of nutrients for your compost microbial workforce. They're just packed with carbohydrates and proteins that microbes absolutely love. Just like bread, it's a good idea to spread them over an area instead of dumping them in one big clump. Don't create a dense, pasty spot in your pile. Sprinkle them in and mix them with every other material helps make sure they get distributed evenly and break down effectively. It's just another simple way to turn potential waste into a valuable resource, making sure nothing from your kitchen goes unused and everything contributes to the cycle of growth in your garden. Now, we're going to get into some really good stuff, the compost activators or the rocket fuel for your garden. Let's talk about manures. Starting with horse manure. If you have access to a local stable or someone with horses, you basically hit the jackpot. Horse manure is a classic time-tested compost ingredient, rich in nitrogen and organic material, and it heaps up a pile beautifully. Hear me out. It's often pre-mixed with straw or wood shavings for bedding, which gives you a nice balance of carbon right from the start. Again, hear me out. One thing to be aware of is horse manure is that horses don't digest seeds very well, so the manure can be full of weed seeds. Not those kind of weed seeds, but just like any manure, it can contain pathogens. The solution for both is the issues is hot composting. A properly managed hot compost pile that reaches and maintains the temperatures above 130 degrees will kill off unwanted seeds and harmful bacteria, leaving you with safe, nutrient-rich, weed-free compost. Not for you smokers out there. Similar to horse manure, cattle or cow manure is another fantastic hot ingredient to add to your compost pile. Again, I want to say, wetter is better and less fibrous than horse manure, but it's an excellent source of nitrogen and beneficial microbes because cows have multiple stomachs. They do a much better job of breaking down what they eat. So their manure typically contains fewer viable weed seeds than horse manure, which is a really nice bonus. For the best results, you want to mix cattle manure with plenty of high carbon browns. Straw is also traditional pairing, but shredded cardboard, wood chips, or dry leaves work wonderful too. This balances the high nitrogen and moisture content, preventing the pile from becoming a slimy anaerobic mess instead of creating a perfectly airy, moist environment for rapid decomposition. It's a classic recipe for a reason and it works well. Now, again, hear me out. I'm going to keep saying that. Manure is another potent high nitrogen option, but it comes with a few warnings than horse or cow manure because pigs are omnivores. Yep, we're talking about pigs. The digestive system can be more like ours, and their manure has higher potential to carry pathogens and parasites that can be harmful to humans. For this reason, I absolutely must be hot composted. It's not an ingredient for a casual cold compost pile. You need to ensure the compost pile gets hot, stays hot for an extended period of time to guarantee any potential health risks are neutralized. After the hot composting process is complete, it's a very good practice to let the finished compost age for several months before using it. Suggest you do this with all manure because the safety considerations I recommend using compost made with pig manure only on ornamental plants, trees, shrubs rather than your edible vegetable garden. Safety first. We're doing all about safety tips. This is knowledge over convenience. Here's a special one. Rabbit manure is often referred to as the gardener's gold for good reason. Few manures that consider cold, meaning it's so high in nitrogen you can burn your plants. Will burn your plants if directly applied. You can also take rabbit droppings and use them immediately as a top dressing for your plants without composting them first. It's double use. It's incredibly convenient, and composting is still a fantastic option. The small pellet-like droppings break down very quickly and packed with nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. They also contain beneficial trace minerals and microbes. It's so well balanced, it doesn't require as much careful mixing as hotter manures. If your neighbor raised rabbits, you can access one of those hassle-free and effective soil amendments available. Sheep manure, yep, we're going to get into manures for a while, folks. I promise to change it. Hear me out. Sheep manure is another premium compost ingredient highly valued by organic gardeners. Like rabbit manure, it comes in a convenient pellet form, which makes it easy to handle and spread. It's richer in nutrients like nitrogen, potassium than horse or cow manure, and it's well balanced enough that it's less likely to burn plants. The pellets have very low odor, which is a definite plus because sheep chew their cud They're like cows. They do a great job of breaking down weed seeds, so you have fewer unwanted volunteers in your garden. It decomposes readily in a compost pile, adding significant value and nutrients. It's sometimes harder to find than other manures unless you're in an area where there's sheep farms, but if you can get your hands on it, it'll create an exceptionally high quality compost that your garden will love. Chicken manure. Whew, boy, hear me out. Chicken manure is composting dynamite. It's incredibly rich in your garden and it's rich in nitrogen and essential nutrients, making it one of the most potent manures you can use. But here's the thing, the strength is also a big challenge. It's hot with nitrogen, so you absolutely cannot apply it to a fresh garden. It will honestly severely burn your plants, and it really must be composted first. Adding the chicken manure to your pile, you need to be very deliberate about balancing with large volume of carbon-rich brown materials. We'll talk about a ratio at least 2 to 3 parts browns, like wood shaving straw or shredded leaves, to 1 part chicken manure. It prevents it from becoming ammonia, smelling slimy mess that helps break down into a wonderfully balanced, powerful fertilizer. Handle it with respect and you will reward you handsomely. Woo! Again, hear me out. Goats are browsers, not grazers. They eat a huge variety of plants, shrubs, and even tree bark. That means their diet is honestly incredibly diverse. The diversity is passed on to their manure, making a wide array of trace minerals and nutrients that might not be present in other manures. This makes goat manure particularly unique and viable compost or valuable compost ingredient for creating a complex, well-rounded soil amendment. Like sheep manure, it comes in dry, pelletized droppings, that's a good word, pelletized, that are low in order and you know it's easy to work with. It's considered a medium hot manure and it's not as potent as chicken manure, but it's a great activator for a compost pile. It breaks down nicely thanks to the goat's effective digestive system, usually contains very few weed seeds. If you know a goat keeper, make friends with them, buy them lunch, and your compost pile will thank you. Now, this one might sound a bit strange, but you keep an aquarium, you actually have a source of fantastic liquid fertilizer. When you clean your fish tank, don't just pour out that cloudy, dirty water down the drain. That water is full of fish waste, manure, and dissolved nutrients. Hear me out. This is essentially ready to use mild liquid fertilizer. You can use it to moisten your compost pile, even apply it directly to your garden plants. This is a gentle, natural way to add both moisture and a dose of nitrogen and phosphorus to your system. The same goes for waste from a pond or aquatic setup. It's all part of the same beautiful cycle. You're taking the waste from one ecosystem, your aquarium, and using it to feed another, your compost pile. Just be mindful not to use the water that's been treated with harsh chemicals or medications, as you definitely don't want those in your garden. All right, now let's take a deep breath, everybody. We have to talk about this one, the ultimate taboo, because it's the ultimate closed loop system. Human manure, composting human waste, is a practice been used for centuries, and in many cultures is the subject of fantastic books like The Human, Your Handbook. Done correctly and used in a dedicated composting system, it's a safe and sanitary process. Hear me out. The key is long, hot composting period, followed by extensive aging, at least a year, preferably 2. I'm going to go with 2 and maybe more. The process must be managed flawlessly to eliminate the risk of pathogens and involves adding carbon layer cover material like sawdust after every use to manage odors and create a right carbon to nitrogen ratio. Probably done for more advanced people. Finished human manure compost should never be only used on non-edible plants like trees, shrubs, and ornaments. It's an advanced, dedicated practice, but one worth knowing about in the conversation of ultimate sustainability. It's just for knowledge. Now back to the familiar freshly cut grass clippings from your lawn that are a fantastic source of nitrogen for your compost pile. They're a classic green material full of moisture and ready to get the decomposition party started. When you add a fresh batch of clippings, you get the most you can almost feel the pile heat up. They're a great activator and a perfect way to recycle nutrients right back into your property. The one rule with grass clippings is don't add them in thick layers or clumps because they're so wet and dense it can actually quickly mat down, block airflow, and turn slimy, stinky anaerobic mess. The trick is to sprinkle them in thin layers, or even better, mix them in thoroughly with brown materials like dry leaves, shredded paper as you add them. It keeps the pile light and airy and ensures they break down properly, which is pretty cool. Or you probably could leave them out and let them dry. Now, pulling weeds from the garden can feel like a thankless task, but your compost pile offers a silver lining. Why not? Why throw those nutrients away when weeds are, after all, plants growing where you don't want them? They've been busy pulling up minerals and nutrients from your soil, and by composting them, you can reclaim those valuable resources and put them back where they belong. It's a satisfying way to turn a chore into a resource gathering mission. Here's the critical part. You need to be smart about which weeds you compost and how. The biggest risk is composting weeds that have already gone to seed. If you do that in a cool compost pile, you're basically just incubating future weed problems for your garden. The solution is either compost weeds before they set in, or if they already have seeds, only add them to a very hot compost pile that you probably know right now reach temperatures high enough to destroy them, over 130, right dead in the middle, right? When you prune your trees and shrubs, you're left with a pile of branches and twigs. Don't send them to the landfill. This woody material is an incredible source of carbon. That's the brown material we've been talking about, essentially balancing all the nitrogen-rich greens that we talk about in their whole form. The branches will take forever to break down, so the key is to process them first. The best way to do that's with a wood chipper or a shredder. Turns those bulky branches into a pile of beautiful wood chips. Those chips are perfect for your compost pile. They add carbon, create air pockets that improve aeration and absorb excess moisture. What am I, Elmer Fudd? If you don't have a chipper, then you could use smaller twigs and branches and break them down by hand or with loppers. It takes more work, but it's worth incorporating a slow-release carbon sources into your compost. Just a thought. By the end of the growing season, when your tomato plants are done producing, your corn stalks have been harvested, what do you do with the leftover plant matter? It goes straight into the compost pile. Remember, this is a huge source of organic material and biomass that you spent all season growing. Letting it go to waste is a missed opportunity. Chopping it up and composting returns all the nutrients to the soil for the next year before you toss them in. It's a good idea to chop and shred the plant, especially tough fibrous ones like corn stalks, sunflower stems, which helps them break down much faster. The only exception is that the plants are heavily infested with disease. If you had serious issue with blight or powdery mildew, it's safer to decompose or dispose of the plant somewhere else unless you're an expert in maintaining a very hot compost pile capable of killing those pathogens. Again, experts only. In the fall, nature delivers a massive gift of carbon material right at your doorstep, leaves. Raking leaves can feel like a chore, but you're really doing is harvesting one of the best possible ingredients for your compost pile. Dry leaves are the perfect brown material to balance out greens like grass clippings and kitchen scraps. They prevent the pile from compacting and provide carbon that feeds the fungi responsible for breaking down tough materials. I recommend stockpiling as many leaf bags as you can in the fall. You can then stash all year long, adding a layer of those leaves every time you add a bucket of kitchen scraps. This creates a perfect lasagna-like structure for your garden pile. Shredding the leaves with the lawnmower first helps them break down even faster. It's not strictly necessary, but the leaves are free and abundant and essential ingredient for great compost. So, if you want to pick a squash from your garden and you find it riddled with squash bugs, or maybe you discover your cabbage has been decimated by flea beetles, it's honestly super frustrating. But can you compost this pest-infested produce? Well, yes, you can, but it's definitely another case of where the how is everything. You really cannot just toss it into a cool, slow pile, since the insect eggs and larvae might survive and reinfest your garden next year. This is the kind of material that's only suitable for a well-managed hot compost pile. The sustained high temperatures between 130 and 160 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 55 to 70 degrees Celsius, in the core of an active pile are enough to kill insects, their eggs, and their larvae. You need to be confident that your pile is getting hot enough that you're turning it properly, just to make sure all the material spends time in that hot center. If you're not sure, it's honestly safe to just throw them in the trash. Now, this is the most frequently asked question. It really does require serious caution. Now, what about plants infected with diseases like powdery mildew, tomato blight, or end rot? Composting these can be risky if the pathogen survives the process, and you can actually end up spreading the disease all over your garden when you use the compost. It's honestly a recipe for disaster. Just like with pests and certain manures, the only way to safely compost diseased plant material is through rigorous hot composting. The heat generated in a properly maintained hot pile can destroy most plant pathogens. However, there are some incredibly resilient. You must be diligent about maintaining these high temperatures and turning piles. For most home gardeners, especially those with cooler, passive piles, my advice is to err on the side of caution. Do not compost diseased plants. Just dispose of them in the trash instead. That's the final verdict. Okay? Don't ask. So this one's for homesteaders, the hunters, and honestly, the truly hardcore composters out there. When an animal's processed for meat, there's a lot of waste generated. Blood, viscera, and other bits that aren't typically consumed by humans. This material is an incredibly potent source of nitrogen and other nutrients. In fact, blood meal is a common organic fertilizer for a reason. Composting this waste on site is a way, to close the loop completely. But it's also an advanced composting technique that requires the utmost care to prevent odors and pests. All of the materials must be buried immediately and quickly in the center of a very large hot compost pile, surrounded by a thick layer of high carbon material like wood chips or sawdust. The pile will heat up rapidly and break down the material with surprising speed. It's not for the faint of heart for a small scale gardener but a farmstead or farm scale operation with highly incredible effective way to handle waste. Now we're shifting gears to something else. That we have way too much junk mail. Instead of just tossing in a recycling bin, you can actually divert a lot of it to your compost pile and say all of it. Most of the non-glossy paper like envelopes, letters, bills are a great source of carbon, and it's gracefully processed wood pulp. It's a lot like dry leaves or straw in your pile. The key is to shred it first. Run it through a paper shredder and it turns into a fluffy material that mixes in beautifully and won't mat down. It also increases the surface area for a faster breakdown, which is awesome. I would avoid composting the glossy, heavy inked flyers and catalogs, since all the inks and clay used for the coating can contain chemicals you might not want in your garden. But for all the regular paper mail, just shred it up and feed it to your pile. Again, I covered the ink part for people who are going to comment. Watch the video and learn. Just like junk mail, old newspapers are readily available, an excellent source of carbon for your compost. In the past, there were concerns about heavy metals used in colored inks, and nowadays modern newspapers almost universally use soy-based or non-toxic inks, making them perfectly safe for the compost bin. They're a fantastic way to recycle them and build a structure for your pile. As with other paper products, shredding is definitely the way to go. Tearing the newspaper into strips by hand works fine, but running it through a shredder is much more efficient. That shredded paper adds bulk and creates air pockets, which are crucial for aerobic decomposition. It's a highly absorbent and makes it a great way to balance out very wet greens like kitchen scraps or fresh grass clippings. So don't recycle all your newspapers, save some. For the compost, well, cardboard is probably or more honestly, a compost superstar. Plain brown corrugated cardboard, just like the shipping boxes we all get, is one of the best brown materials you can add. It's high in carbon, and its wavy structure is fantastic for creating air channels that your pile needs to breathe. It provides bulk and structure that prevents the pile from becoming overly compact and dense. In compost cardboard, you can break it down first, remove any plastic tape and shipping labels. Then tear it, cut it into smaller pieces. Soaking it in a bucket of water for a few minutes can make it much easier to tear. Trust me, you have a lot of it. Running over it with the lawnmower and can shred it up nicely. Layer it in with your greens and it slowly break down, feeding the fungi and becoming a key component of your finished compost product. Now, we're not talking about metal. We're talking about your fingernails, toenail clippings. It might seem a little weird, but think about it. Nails are made of keratin, which is protein. Proteins are a source of nitrogen. They break down slowly in a compost pile and release their nutrients over time. It can also contain trace minerals that contribute to overall density of your compost. Now, obviously, you're not going to be building a pile out of nail clippings alone. That's disgusting. This is what I call a micro ingredient, not macro, micro. It's not something you want to add in large quantities, but every time you clip your nails, instead of flicking them in the trash, you can collect them in a little jar and add them to your compost pile. Just hide that from your guest. It's a small, simple act that really embodies the principle of wasting nothing and returning everything back to the soil. Similar to fingernails, hair is also a protein, keratin, which is a fantastic slow-release source of nitrogen. It also includes the hair you clean out of your brush, the clippings from your home haircut, even some of the contents from your vacuum cleaner if you don't use carpet powders, which takes a while to break down, but if it does, it provides a steady supply of nitrogen to microbial life in your pile. Because hair tends to clump together, it's best to spread it out as much as possible. When you add it to a pile, mix it in with other materials rather than just dropping a whole clump in one spot. Also, again, it's a micro ingredient, so it's a perfect example of looking at something we normally consider waste and seeing it for what it really is, a valuable organic resource. Every little bit adds to the richness of the final product. Gray water We're going to get to that now. Is a gently used water from your showers, baths, and laundry. Can you use it to moisten your compost pile? Absolutely, with a few important conditions. Water is often a limiting factor in composting, especially in dry climates. And using gray water is a great way to conserve fresh water while adding moisture to your pile. The condition is that you use biodegradable, plant friendly soaps, detergents, and shampoos. You cannot use gray water if it contains harsh materials, bleach, or synthetic softeners, as these can harm the microbes in your compost and contaminate your soil. But if you're using simple, eco friendly products, the soapy water is perfectly fine. It can even help break down the waxy coatings on leaves and other materials. It's a great synergy between water conservation and composting, and believe me, we are going to need that. We talked about composting the eggshells, but don't forget the carton they come in, specifically the gray, fibrous cardboard or pulp cartons. They're a fantastic source of carbon for your pile. Essentially just recycled paper or cardboard pressed into a new shape. They behave just like shredded newspaper or cardboard in your pile. Just make sure you're not trying to compost the styrofoam or clear plastic egg cartons. They're not compostable, and they should be recycled if possible. And to compost the paperboard ones, simply tear them into smaller pieces and toss them in. They break down very quickly, especially when they get moist, adding good structure and carbon to balance your kitchen scraps. It's another easy win, closing the loop on your breakfast routine. Getting the theme here, right? Used paper towels and napkins are another great source of carbon that many people overlook. As long as you've used them to wipe simple food spills, water, or just dry your hands, they can go right into that compost bin. They are, after all, just paper. They absorb moisture and provide the brown material that your compost pile craves. The only caveat is to avoid composting paper towels that have been used to wipe up harsh chemical cleaners, grease, or anything you won't want in your garden. A little bit of cooking oil is fine, and if it's going to go into a hot pile, but again, anything synthetic or toxic for everyday kitchen use, shred them up and toss them in. They'll disappear into a pile in no time. The hard woody shells from nuts like pistachios, pecans, peanuts, and walnuts are often thrown away, but they can be a great addition to your compost pile. They're very dense and woody, which means they're a long-term, slow-release source of carbon. They also help create air pockets that improve the structure of your pile, preventing compaction because they're so tough they will take a very long time to break down. You will likely find shell fragments in your first batch of finished compost. That's perfectly fine because you can either screen them out, toss them back into a new pile for another round of decomposition, or just leave them in your finished compost to continue breaking down in the garden soil. So if you don't have an old stained 100% cotton t-shirt that's just totally beyond repair, or maybe some old used cotton balls or even cardboard sticks from a cotton swabs laying around, well, it's probably 100% cotton, which is a natural plant fiber. You can actually compost it. The cotton is mostly cellulose, making a carbon-rich or brown material for your compost pile. It's honestly a great way to get rid of old textiles that can't be donated. To help it break down quicker or faster, you should just cut or tear the fabric into small strips or square. For cotton balls or swabs, just toss them right in. Hey, they make a material that's 100% cotton and not synthetic blend like cotton poly because the synthetic fibers won't break down and will stick around in your finished compost pile. That's not good. Pure cotton, though, will return to the earth, breaking down and enriching your soil. So stay away from those synthetic blends. Every time you clean the lint trap in your clothes dryer or your dryer for Americans, you're actually holding a potential compost ingredient. There is a really important if. If you can only compost dryer lint if your laundry is mostly made up of natural fibers like cotton, wool, or silk. Linen too. The lint is just a bundle of these tiny fibers and they will break down beautifully in your compost pile. However, if you wash a lot of synthetic fibers like polyester, nylon acrylic, or your dryer lint will be full of microplastics, and you don't want to add those to your garden soil. So you have to be honest about what you're washing. If your wardrobe is all natural, go ahead and compost that lint. If it's a mix, it's honestly safer to throw the lint in the trash, and it's actually a good reminder to think about the materials our clothes are made from. When you brush your dog or cat, you end up with a big wad of fur, right? I know I do, or I did when I had dogs. It's kind of crazy. So what do you do with it? Well, you just put that in the compost. It's just like human hair. Pet fur is made up of protein and it acts as a wonderful slow release source of nitrogen. It's a fantastic way to recycle shedding from your furry family animals right back into the ecosystem of your yard. This fur works from dogs, cats, rabbits, guinea pigs, and really any furry pet you might have. Much like hair, it could be matted together, so it's a good idea to pull apart and a bit and mix with other materials to add to your compost pile. Don't just add it if your pet's recently been treated with chemical flea or tick treatment, since you don't want those pesticides going into your compost. Otherwise, it's a perfect free source of nitrogen for your pile. All right, guys, there you have it. 39 surprising ways you can add a home compost pile. I really hope this journey has busted some myths and, even more importantly, expanding your idea of what's possible. Composting is not just a chore, it's honestly a creative process. It's about seeing the value in everything and realizing that there really is no way we can throw something out. By turning all these diverse materials into black gold, you can actually participating in a cycle of renewal. You're building a healthier soil, growing more nutritious food, and creating a resilient, sustainable homestead. This is exactly what we're about here. We're taking practical steps, both big and small, to build something lasting. Every handful of compost you create is an investment into the future of your land. And just like a deposit into your soul bank account, the asset that'll pay dividends in year for years is the form of a healthier, more productive garden and a deeper connection to the land you steward. And it's honestly a powerful act of creation and legacy. The whole philosophy of building on value is the cornerstone of our mission. Ancestry Lands is all about promoting generational wealth through land ownership and financial awareness to empower people everywhere. We believe that by making smart, sustainable choices, we can build a better future for ourselves and for generations to come. So go ahead, subscribe, like, and follow us for more content that helps you build your legacy through land. Thanks so much for watching. That's it, folks. You can go to Ancestry Lands to start owning property today with payments starting at $250 a month, no credit checks, and owning land has never been easier. It's time to build your land portfolio one property at a time. We help you to get dollars from dirt and build generational wealth by owning small plots of affordable vacant land. Contact us to learn more. Oh, and speaking of dollars from dirt, I also wrote a book about investing in land for you readers out there. My book, Getting Dollars from Dirt, A Beginner's Guide to Vacant Land Investing, is on Amazon. The link is in the description section below. Inside, you'll learn simple, easy to read insights that will have you understanding why you should own land today. For more tips and tricks, subscribe for updates, comment below, and let us know what you enjoyed about this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
And remember, like and subscribe.